one thing that we all have in common as being human beings are relationships. Doesn't matter whether it's work, friendship, or dating. So, one thing that's really important, I feel, in the beginning of any type of relationship is getting to know the person for who they are. What does that mean? It's allowing to give them the space to be themselves. And with that, even if it's a date or whatever, you get to experience them for who they are. Of course, everybody shows you their best representative in the beginning, but if you give them a little bit of freedom and let them just go with it, go with the flow, you'll pick up a lot of things. Just for instance, you ask somebody, oh, are you religious? Let them go with it. You don't say, I'm a Christian, what are you? I'm a Buddhist, what are you? I'm a Muslim, what are you? Because now you're giving them something to gauge accordingly, too. So you just ask them a question without giving them any type of prior background of what you think or believe. Okay, it's not about you not sharing anything, but sometimes a narcissist will definitely ask you all the questions and mold their answers to your liking. And then next thing you know, you're like, well, this person isn't who I thought they were. So with any type of relationship, if you're a very idealistic person, you're going to probably say, that's not a big deal. But is it a big deal to you? What are your non-negotiables? Do you care if somebody's a drinker or a smoker? Do you care if they party? I would never be with somebody who's a party animal. I hate that stuff. I never liked it even when I was in my 20s or my teens. So if somebody's like, oh yeah, I like to go to a bar, I like to go dancing a lot, it's like, well, how often do you do that? Oh, every weekend with my girls. That's not something that I would be okay with having to do myself. I wouldn't mind if she went out once in a while, but every weekend? So next thing you know, you can't be in a relationship 6 months later and then thinking that, or complaining actually, that your significant other goes out every weekend with their friends. They told you in the beginning. So now you have to take certain things and say, do I feel comfortable with that? Am I going to be okay with that? If you say no, why did you let that relationship evolve into something? Why? Because you thought you could change them. You thought all of a sudden that they're going to have this click of reality where they're going to say, oh, I'm in a relationship now. I shouldn't be doing those things because that's not the right thing to do, or it's not the mature thing to do, or it's not something you like to do. No, they're going to go, this is what I've always done. Why are you complaining now? What's the problem? This is what I've always done. You're okay with it in the beginning. And it's like, if you were, you're the one who manipulated the situation. So you don't have a right to complain. And this is what happens. You don't fall in love with the person. You fall in love with potential. When you fall in love with potential, there's always going to be a problem, especially if there's red flags. If the person likes to gamble or they were cheaters, just whatever they share with you, don't take that and go, oh, it's a red flag. Let me throw some glitter on it and make it look beautiful. It's like, no, that's a red flag. Because in the future, once those red flags pile up, what are you going to do with them? You're going to complain that you're not happy, that why are you in this relationship? With a friendship, it's easier. You could just say it's over with and that's it. But with a relationship, there's a lot more involvement, So when it's okay to have to be a little idealistic, where you look for the best in people, you wish for the best, you hope for the best, you look for the good in everybody. But if somebody's telling you things or they do things constantly that you don't like, why did you pursue that relationship to go any further? And then it's like, oh, 3 years later, oh, so-and-so does this. Well, didn't they do that in the very beginning of the relationship? Yeah, so what was the problem? Well, I thought I could change them, or I thought they would grow out of it. That's you trying to be controlling and not paying attention to what was really going on, or having wishful thinking. It's just as bad. So when you meet somebody, let them be themselves. If the person tells you, oh yeah, I'm a hardcore football fanatic. Every Sunday I watch the game. I go to the games. If you hate football, are you going to stop him from going? Because he's going to do it anyway. Or do you love football and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. I have somebody to watch football with because my dad used to watch it. You know, you have to start to weigh and balance things. And if you just sweep it under the rug and say, oh, things will get better on its own, it's like having a wound on your arm and just putting a Band-Aid over. Meanwhile, it's a staph infection or something where you could die from it. Just because the Band-Aid's over, it doesn't mean the thing is healing. And it doesn't mean that it's clean. So same thing, when you meet people, as you get older, of course, you know what you want and what you don't want, and your standards start to change. But now when you're dating and you meet somebody, don't start to let your boundaries erode, or where you have no boundaries and you let that person just say and do what they want, and you just pretend everything's great. Because now you're in a relationship, you're living with them, you might be married with kids, and then, you know, now you're thinking about getting out of the relationship. And it's like, why? Because of what they did in the very beginning that you didn't like, but you were okay with because you thought they had the potential to change. This is a thing that happens with a lot of people. Anybody I personally dated, I never had any type of idea that I'm going to change them, or, you know, with time this will get better or whatever. I never thought that. I always took them for who they were. And I thought, okay, let's see how it goes. And next thing you know, they're trying to change me. Meanwhile, I'm very honest and upfront, you know. And I remember when I was married, you know, I was 19 years old, and I was like, well, as long as she accepts me for being a martial arts fanatic, I don't need anything else, because that's what I did every single day. You know, I was young, so it didn't matter, but that's what I cared about. And she didn't stop me from it, and to me, that was perfect. You know, but there's all these red flags I saw with her, with jealousy, insecurity, devaluing me, having these crazy thoughts where I'm cheating or I like somebody when I'm at work, or she knows where I was all the time. I couldn't change that. So next thing you know, I started to change myself, trying to not to be walking on eggshells all the time, and I was miserable. And she was miserable no matter what. I couldn't make her happy because she's like, oh, you were a perfect guy if you just changed this. It's like, well, that's who I am. You know, so when you start to look at relationships, start to build them with honesty. If you build them with any type of manipulation, or you start to color the red flags, next thing you know, it's going to take a lot longer to get out of that relationship, or even because you've invested more time, more emotions, more feelings, you know, money, whatever it could be. So, you know, the only thing I'm just saying is, you know, when you see the red flags, I wouldn't start making red flags out of anything, but when you see them, go, well, is that something I'm okay with? That person likes to drink every day. Am I okay with that or not? That's for you to decide. Same thing. Oh, the person likes to bet on games. They like to gamble on horses. Are you okay with that? You know, does that person loves going to strip clubs? Are you okay with that? The person loves hanging out with their friends and going to the bar all the time. You know, the person, you catch them in a lot of lies, little lies all the time. Is that okay? You know, if it's okay, then it's not a big deal. But if it's not okay, don't think that somebody's going to come like a fairy godmother and sprinkle fairy dust on a relationship after 5 years and it's going to become the perfect relationship that you wanted. No, because you helped manipulate the situation. You lied to yourself. You allowed things with weak boundaries to be in the relationship that you never wanted, but now it's there. It's always been there. So, you know, when you start to build a relationship with anybody, allow them to be themselves. You know, don't overshare. Don't be the type of person that loves to talk about themselves all the time. Let them be themselves. Ask them questions about themselves and get to learn who they are. You know, get to see what they like, what they don't like, what's their habits, what's their thoughts on life, whether it's politics, religion, relationships. You know, I know somebody who's complaining to me where she's getting angry at her boyfriend that she lives with because he's a polyamorist. So he's sleeping with other girls. So I go, didn't you notice from the beginning? She's like, yeah, but, you know, I thought it would stop. How is that going to stop? He told you. This is his belief on relationships. That's never going to stop. So now it's like a few years later, you thought he'd be a monogamist, it doesn't work that way. So it's like you don't have a right to complain at this point. And he's not doing anything wrong because he told you in the very beginning that he's into the polyamory thing. You know, it's not my thing. But if I met a girl and she was like, oh, this is what I like, it's like, well, good for you. It's not for me, so I can't be in a relationship with you. But you can't complain down the road when the person was honest with you, but you thought you were going to change them. You know, it's hard for people to change themselves. How are you going to change another human being? It's hard for people to control themselves. How are you going to control another human being? A lot of people have to stop doing all this type of projection and narcissistic things where they think, oh, I'm going to change everybody to my liking. It doesn't work that way, you know. So somebody brought this up to me, so I just went on a little bit of a rant here. But, you know, take things for what they are. You know, somebody, like with the Zen stories, the student asks his Zen master, teacher, what's enlightenment? And he looks over there at the bushes, and there's bamboo trees and bamboo sticks. And he goes, well, you see that bamboo? He goes, that one's kind of really tall, right? He goes, yes. He goes, you see that bamboo right there? That's kind of really short, really small, right? He's like, yes. He goes, that's enlightenment. Take things for what they are. Don't create something else out of it, because the person that's probably going to suffer from it is you, especially if you didn't like it to begin with. I couldn't be with somebody that smokes. I couldn't be with somebody that does drugs or drinks or is a party animal or a drama queen. I just can't. I tried it when I was younger. It didn't work out. So, you know, write down the stuff that are your non-negotiables. Have boundaries. I don't care how attractive that person is. Beauty comes from within. You could find somebody that's very attractive, and over time they start to look very ugly because they're not a good person. And then you could find somebody who's cute, and over time they're the most beautiful being in the world because you got to know them and their soul.